sensitive. The guy joining me on the line right now, you know him from his poker commentary. He's a great sports journalist, and I've been watching him on television for years. His name is Norman Chad, and well, he put out a tweet that got some people upset. I don't defend that, but I wanted to have him on to talk about it. Norman, it is good to see you, my friend. How are you?
I've seen better. I've seen worse.
It's always I've always loved your sense of humor, Norm. You know that. It's been a little while since we spoke. First of all, how are you doing, by the way? Before I get to this tweet, how have you been doing?
I'm okay. I've been doing the poker now for 20 years with the World Series of Poker, and that's become a life, and I've enjoyed it, and everything's fine.
And you're very good at it. I enjoy your commentary, and I always have. Okay. So as you know, Norm, sometimes on social media, people can get a little bit sensitive and things get blown way out of proportion. I'm going to read you a tweet that you put out several days ago, and it started like a storm. I don't really understand why, but anyway, here it goes. This is what you said on December 15th, I believe. Congrats to the World Poker Tour, Savage Poker, Win Poker for hosting 3,835 players for the World Poker Tour World Championship. 3,835. Nice. I remember early in the poker boom when the World Series of Poker main event blew past 4,000 in 2005 with 5,619 entrants. It felt great. You'll get there. Why do you think so many people were upset by that tweet?
Apparently, it's amazing because you know how toxic and shitty the internet can be, particularly social media, particularly Twitter and X. So they were upset because the World Poker Tour and the World Series of Poker are competitors. I'm associated with the World Series of Poker. The World Poker Tour just put on a wonderful event in which they got 3,800 players for their World Championship. They were short of their guarantee of how many players they needed to make a certain money amount. And they were upset that in the light of their success, that I was sort of making a joke, let's say making a joke that, hey, look, you got this many players, but the World Series of Poker got that many players 18 years ago.
Right.
You'll get there at some point. Now that's it. That's the whole, it's, as I've told people, I don't see anything in there that's sexist, racist, ethnically offensive. No animals or children were injured in the production of that tweet. Apparently they were defensive of the World Poker Tour. Couldn't believe I was dunking on a competitor when all the time I play around with the World Poker Tour over the last few weeks leading up to this event.
Yeah. And listen, I'm with you. I don't think that what you said was, I mean, I guess maybe somebody could accuse you of being a tad snippy with it. Some people might say, well, you know, he's kind of maybe a little poke the bear with the World Poker Tour. But other than that, I don't see anything else that was in there that would get people to get so up in arms and upset over it. I mean, is that fair, do you think?
Yeah, Brian, it was, you know, when I woke up and had all these texts that it was this large, I had no idea what they were talking about. You know, just in the run up to this, again, when the World Poker Tour, their CEO announced a $40 million guarantee on video. I came on and using the same words, I announced a $40.1 million guarantee for the World Series of Poker. When the World Poker Tour decided they were going to give away a $10,000 seat online in a contest, I announced I was going to give away two $15.95 Popeye lunches during the World Series of Poker main event with me. I mean, everything I've done leading up to this is, okay, well, congratulations, you got 3,800 players, but what the heck? You know, that's good. Maybe you'll get more next year.
That's hilarious. I just feel like we live in a day and an age, Norman. Listen, you've been in this business for a long time. I just feel like sometimes social media is a cesspool of negativity. I'm pretty sure you would agree with me on that. I mean, you even have Phil Hellmuth saying that you're too hard on him, and you guys have been in riffs. You've been in some riffs with some prominent people in the poker world over time, and that's going to happen. I don't think there's anything wrong with being opinionated, but what do you make of that? I mean, it's just social media in general.
We have two elements in here. You know, social media. I remember before we had social media, they had chat rooms, and I remember telling my father, he would go into to read the chat rooms that were criticizing stuff I had written or stuff I went on TV, and then he went in under his own name to defend me. I said, Dad, don't do that. It looks bad. You know, I said, Dad, this is the chat rooms are the worst place in America. People are just sitting around and anonymously, they just throw grenades over the hill and they rub their tummy. Well, Twitter is the chat room on steroids. So we have that toxic, negative home. And then we have poker, which is just, there's an old joke. What's the difference between a puppy and a poker player? Well, a puppy eventually stops whining. poker players complain about everything, so it doesn't matter. If you cure cancer, they want to know what your cut is in it, and why'd you wait this long to cure cancer? So that's all I make of it. I've always ignored the Twitter storms. I've always ignored everything that's online about that because it's healthier for you mentally. And I kind of got dragged down in this one, but I don't make much of it.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you this, the World Poker Tour is not the World Series of Poker. Let's just be honest. All due respect to the World Poker Tour. I used to love Mike Sexton's commentary, the late Mike Sexton. And I used to love it back in the day when I think we had some big names in Vegas for this tournament. Don't get me wrong. But in general, the World Poker Tour is not what it once was. We don't have the star power like it used to have. But hey, back in the day, I lived in Connecticut. I used to go to Foxwoods for the World Poker Tour event every year. And I really enjoyed it. But it's not the World Series of Poker. I don't think you can compare the two. Here's a question, Norm, that I never asked you. I don't know what your opinion is on this, but I'm sure it's something you've talked about, and that is the alleged cheating scandal that took place at Hustler with Garrett Adelstein, who's now back in the limelight. He's playing cash games again. I've talked to Garrett before. What did you make of that Jack 4 hand? What did you make of that situation? And do you think Garrett Adelstein was out of line? Because I don't think it was cheating at all.
I guess we'll never know. I've watched it, a dozen times like everybody else. It didn't seem the actions that she took didn't seem to follow the actions of a normal person. To way she played the hand, the way she called when she, even when she said afterwards, I knew you were bluffing, even though she had cards that were terrible, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know whether she cheated or not. I understand Garrett's immediate reaction to it right there. I mean, if he sees her turn her cards over, she sees what she calls an all-in with when she has no hand, no draw, just jack high. So I understand his in-the-moment reaction to it. Again, whether they did an investigation, they said they found nothing improper. So I will stand by that. I always say this. If it's online, all forms of poker are going to have cheating. We just had another live poker cheating in live poker scandal in Southern California for millions of dollars. So they're all going to have it. I've always had extra cynicism when it comes to online poker because there's just so many ways to game it in online poker, and when it's a live stream because all it takes is the cooperation of two people to game it. So you never know what's going to happen.
Do you think that a guy, like a Chris Ferguson I know Ferguson came back and he played in the World Series of Poker, but do you believe like a Howard Lederer should be allowed to play in the World Series of Poker if they've paid their dues, fines, whatever? We all know what took place at Full Tilt with the Ponzi scheme and everybody that was affected by that. But are you comfortable with a Ferguson or a Howard Lederer playing in the World Series of Poker every year?
Again, there's two issues here, Brian. The short answer is absolutely. If they first of all, we know that Full Tilt Poker had a Ponzi scheme. Mm-hmm. I can't find a person outside of Ray Bitar who took the dive for it because he was the orchestrator of it, who can give me the details of who else knew what and what else was happening among the other partners and stuff. I don't know what Howard did or did not do. I don't know what Chris did or not do. So yes, if they want to play, they can play. If people want to walk up and get away from the table, that's fine too. That's a different issue than the cheating that goes on in poker, which is not held accountable. If you do cheat, like, I've talked to people who know that somebody cheats online, but they have no problem if they play live poker with them. If you cheat in any venue, this is sort of a death penalty situation. It's pretty poker 101. So if you are cheating in poker, you might get a second chance. And sometimes I might not even give them a second chance if it's sort of a serial murder equivalent in poker where somebody's just cheating somebody out of millions and millions of dollars. But yeah, if you cheat in poker, you should be able to sit down at a table, live, online, anywhere. So that's a separate issue than I believe the Howard Lederer or Chris Ferguson. They were part of Full Tilt Poker and players got cheated.
Agree with you 150%. You have commentated so many final tables, so much poker in your career. If you had to choose 3 or 4 players, your dream 3 or 4 players, dead or alive, that you would want to commentate at a final table, say it's the final main event of the World Series of Poker, whatever the case may be, who would those players be? I'm curious.
Well, you always like the players who, more than just playing great poker, bring something else to the table. They're a larger than life character. They have good talk, et cetera, et cetera. So love them or hate them. And I actually love them away from the table and hate them at the table. Phil Hellmuth is always an interesting presence at the table. There's no way around it. He's always been that way, even before the television cameras. So he's in that short list. Someone like Amarillo Slim, who passed away, used to be on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson for 10 or 15 appearances. He is a remarkable, just to sit next to and listen to him tell one of his, 500 stories, or give one of his 500 Amarilloisms. One of my favorite Amarilloisms, Brian, is he tells you, you know why the population of Amarillo, Texas never changes? Because every time a woman gets pregnant, a man leaves town. So he's got a million of those. So you start with guys who talk up a great storm like that. And the late Sam Grizzle, who actually got into it with Phil Hellmuth once in a while, was maybe one of the funniest people, if not the funniest person I've ever been around at a poker table. And I only had the pleasure of playing next to him 3 times in my life. So you want people who are going to make it enjoyable. Poker is half social and half gambling, and you want to be social while you're sitting there winning or losing money.
It's interesting, Norm, because, today, there's a lot of subscriptions, whether it be Poker Go, whatever network you're watching, and there's a lot of poker aficionados out there, and it's doing very well. And I'm not saying it's not. However, I believe that poker was at its best back in the earlier days, maybe even 15, 20 years ago. I feel like we had more characters at the table. Now, this is just me talking. I don't want to see 7 or 8 guys in their early to mid 20s that are internet poker players that don't talk at the table. To me, it's not entertaining. And I feel like back in the day, talking was, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? It wasn't spoken out against, I guess you could say. And I feel like not just the World Series of Poker, even the World Poker Tour or any other circuit, where talking in the middle of a hand, heads up, they don't like that. The tournament directors don't like it, and they speak out really against it. And I think it hurts the entertainment value of poker. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, a poker player is not obligated to do anything but play the cards. Poker players who are smart know that even when it's not on television, you're running a business. The rest of the players at the table that you're going to be beating, recreational players, should have a good time if possible while they're losing money. If they walk away, you have nobody to win money against. And then if it's the television product, it helps if it's entertaining. Again, the poker players are under no obligation to make it entertaining. And what we're seeing more than anything else, though, Brian, is that the great players now were brought up online, as they'll continue to be. More reps online, more studying. So you got a bunch of people, mostly guys, from the time they were 18, 19 years old, and a lot of them now are in their late 30s, but a lot of them now are, the younger ones in their 20s, who were brought up sitting in front of a laptop, just clicking buttons. They don't have necessarily the greatest social skills in the world. They're not used to talking to other people at a poker table. They're in front of a computer screen. So when they come out from the virtual world to the live world, they're like a deer caught in headlights sometimes.
Right.
They're not used to, sometimes they have they'll have their headsets on, they'll have a hoodie over, they'll have a pair of shades. I'll walk over to them and knock on their side, go, hello, it's human life going on out here. Hey, Look around you, 7 other people. They're not used to that. So the smarter ones come out and they're great, but most of them are just, again, they're grown up in front of a computer, so they're not used to being in a live setting.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. You had mentioned, I would probably tend to think that, most people, Phil Hellmuth might be the most hated poker player at the table. I don't hate the guy at all. I think, and I know you don't hate him either. You love him. He's a good guy off the table. I actually like his antics, even if sometimes he's out of line. I think it's very entertaining, but I'm going to tell you, I talk to Danny Negreanu about this all the time because they certainly don't see Justin Bonomo. I mean, here's a guy that goes on social media and really has nothing to do with his poker or his antics at the poker table. He's a quiet guy. He doesn't really even talk much at the table. But some of his opinions on social media are absurd. It could be political opinions. It could be his opinions on women or his opinions on what's going on in the Middle East. It seems like this is now transcended to the poker table with some people who will get into it based on things they say on social media. And we started the conversation talking about this, but what do you make of Justin Bonomo? And he's not very well liked these days among the poker community.
No, Justin is a lightning rod, to be polite about it. He's not well liked. He does offer his opinions, and he is an extension of what you just talked about. Other poker players do the same thing. Justin is much more out there, as you talked about, with women, with the Middle East situation, whatever. Again, poker players are one of the oddest animals I've ever been around, Brian. There's an arrogance, there's a built-in, we know what's best. And it's one thing with just poker, because they always have an opinion about what's going on at the poker table. It's always their opinion really has whatever serves them best. But I know so many poker players then believe anything that talking about outside the poker table. they also know what's best more than most fellow workers I've dealt with in other communities. You know, I've worked in journalism, I've worked in broadcasting, I've worked in comedy, and I've worked in poker. And the poker community, they just want to be out there, and they tell you that this is what's right. You know, they state opinion as fact. So Twitter has also, again, helped fuel that. Justin is lately, he's one of the most disliked presences on Twitter because of his opinions. And you kind of get tired of it, but you can just turn it off. You know, people, when I say something about anything else, they say stay in your lane, only talk about poker. Well, okay, just turn it off if you don't want to hear me talk about something else.
I agree with you 100%. So I want to ask you about Phil Hellmuth, because obviously I know him personally, you know him personally, but most people in the poker community, the average poker player, doesn't know Phil. They only see what they see on television. Can you describe to me what Phil is like away from the poker table, and why you like him away from the table, to people that maybe don't know him personally like you or I do?
Okay, just before I tell you why I love being around him, the man, his work in charity events year round. Not only does he show up at the events, but he works the event. I mean, if you give him the microphone, he will not give it to you back. So he's walking around the room, talking to people, announcing hands. He doesn't just mail it in when he goes to the event. He gives you the whole 9 yards. I have an incredible amount of respect for that. That's a lot of hours of work. So that's a lot of charity does. But aside from the charity, if you concede the fact that everything in Phil's day pretty much surrounds Phil, it all has to do with Phil. You know, if there's an earthquake in Russia, he's concerned now that, he's not going to be able to get soybeans cheap for his home. It's always, everything's about Phil. But he's just like an overgrown 12-year-old. He's loyal to a fault to his friends. It's just easy to be around him. He's a joyful guy. He just does walk around saying, I'm blessed, positivity, I'm the greatest in the world. So be it. He's fun to be around. And at the poker table, he's not so fun to be around. He loses incredibly entertaining. But when he loses, he's one of the 15 worst losers I've ever seen in my life. Kublai Khan was a bad loser. His brother Genghis Khan was a bad loser. Phil's in the top 10 of bad losers.
Fair enough. I think that's fair. If you had on the top of your list to change one thing about poker, it could be something at the World Series of Poker. It could be something about televised events. You name it. And you can name a few if you'd like, but what is the top thing, Norman, Chad, that you would want to see changed when it comes to poker heading into 2024?
There's 2 or 3 things. Just to get back to a simple thing, it's amazing that poker is taking a lot of blows to the head, and it's still popular. It's been banned online in the United States, and it's still popular. It goes through many generations, and it's still popular. And as popular as it is, it essentially disenfranchises half of the human population. It amazes me that card rooms and casinos can't figure out how to appeal to women. I don't expect half the players in a card room to be women, but I don't expect right now it's like 3 or 4%. That is that's just a huge money ball standing out there. If we're doing this well just with the men, right, how much better we could do if we just get 20% of a room filled with women? Mm-hmm. So that's an industry-wide problem. It's both the card rooms, it's the operators, it's fellow players. Men treat women at the poker table like crap a lot of the time. So it's really tough for a woman to walk into a table and deal with some of the crap she has to deal with. So women's the first thing. Why can't we get women? Doesn't matter what size or age you are. You can be a man or a woman in this sport. There's no gender inequity. That would be my top thing. The other thing would be is I don't play many tournaments, and I have found tournament poker to become much of a joke because of the money-making unlimited reentry. In any other sport or game, you play, you're eliminated, you go home. Here, you play, you're eliminated. Oh, you can re-enter? Okay, let me give you some more money. Oh, I got eliminated again, I can re-enter? Let me give you some money. Some people have 3, 4, 5 tickets into that event. Some people have 1 ticket into that event.
Right.
Competitively, that's really unfair. So I wish there was more of a balance, this unlimited reentry, where somebody with a deeper pocket can simply keep buying tickets to keep playing, and they play differently then because they know they're going to be re-entering again. It's unfair to the rest of the field that's only playing 1 ticket. I wish that could get fixed. To tell you the truth, I'm definitely pissing into the wind on that because the operators like it because they make a lot more money, and a lot of the players like it because they get to re-enter again and again. They can finish 8th in an event and lose money because they entered so many times. So I wish that could get fixed. I don't think that's going to get fixed. The woman issue, though, can get fixed.
Yeah, I agree with you, and that's a wonderful point. There's a lot of women out there that enjoy to gamble, but maybe it's intimidation. They don't like the way they're treated. I'm sure there's a number of different reasons. All right, Norm, last question for you. What would be your message to the people on social media that were so angered and so bothered, the Justin Bonimos of the world, maybe, by this tweet that you put out about the World Series of Poker and the World Poker Tour? I just want to know, what is your message to them?
First of all, it was a bad tweet. Sometimes you tweet bad, you know? Again, I would just maybe sue me if I offended you. I am sorry that I offended anybody. It's, there's so much. Again, I have written 10 or 15,000 tweets in my life. I can think of 9,000 tweets that were better than this. This is like a nothing burger on the side of the road. It wasn't well written. It was misinterpreted. What the hell are we doing that I'm still talking about it 4 days later? This doesn't affect climate change. It doesn't affect world peace. It doesn't affect the price of a double cheeseburger at McDonald's. Why am I here talking about this?
It's a very good point, Norman. Next time we have you on, I promise you I won't bring up this tweet. All seriousness, I love what you do, my man. You're very good at what you do. You've always been very gracious to me, and I appreciate you. And we'll see you out here, of course, for the World Series of Poker, and hopefully we can get you on before then. But keep up those good tweets, my man. I got no problem with anything you've said.
Thank you, Brian. By the way, you turned out to be a better broadcaster than a poker player. And you weren't a bad poker player, but you're a much better broadcaster than a poker player.
I tend to agree with you on that, Norm. That's a good read, my friend. Thanks so much for coming on, as always, and we'll talk to you soon, my friend, and have a great holiday, okay? You and your family.
Sir, happy holidays.
All right, you too. That's Norman Chat, everybody. That guy's funny. That guy's very